is this mystery chapter 4 character? This is a question the Poppy community has been asking for months now, as a weird new character with a hat has began to be teased in various different photos and trailers from the devs, but nothing much has came of them. We don't know who they'll be in chapter 4, what they'll look like, or why they have been teased at all. However, with some new hidden clues and secrets from the developers themselves, and a lot of pacing around my room like a maniac thinking about Poppy Playtime lore, today I think I've discovered some big new details about this mystery character and even the rest of the chapter 4 cast as well. So first, alongside this mystery being, we also have 4 other sets of characters who we also need to point out: the Nightmare Critters, Yarnaby, Pianosaurus, and Harley Sawyer as the endoskeleton. There have also been rumored characters like the Jester we saw in this image from the ARG, but as more time passes, I'm starting to feel like this might have been our mind playing tricks on us or some kind of troll, because I'm really believing the Jester may have never existed. I think this is our final cast for chapter 4, at least for the important characters to the story. Granted, they have waited to reveal characters like Mistelight in chapter 3 until the full game's release before, so it's not past mob to be hiding even more creatures behind our backs, but anything not teased already is probably a minor character anyway. So given our current cast, I'm first left with a major question: who will be our friends and who will be our enemies? In chapter 4 Steam page, they very clearly outlined that there will be new characters that are going to be our allies, but then who will they be? Well, going over our list, the Nightmare Critters are literally meant to be a more violent version of the regular critters, which weren't known for being too friendly to us as is, so it's safe to rule them out. Yarnaby is meant to be an almost pet-like creature to Harley Sawyer, another big enemy of ours, equipped with large teeth and a killer instinct, so it's safe to rule those two out. Then there's the mystery enemy, who we discuss more in a minute, but spoiler alert, I don't think they're our friends as well, only leaving us with Pianosaurus, who we honestly currently don't know much about outside of that he was once a Playtime Co toy, but his bigger body remains a complete mystery. We don't know how he was created, why he was created, or really anything about him. However, while in his trailer and our only look at him, he may seem intimidating and like he's going to be a bad guy, I wonder if this might be an intentional misdirect. Because like we said, just from the process of elimination, Pianosaurus is already a prime suspect, as he's the only character who isn't clearly defined cut and dry as a villain. And when you watch his trailer again, under the lens that he might not be an enemy, something seems different about his demeanor. He is a large creature and kind of freaky looking too, but you can't help but notice that as he lifts himself up, he is shaking profusely, almost like he was either scared or severely injured, and can barely still move with blood running throughout his face, making him in this lens look less intimidating and more pitiful, if anything, which is far from proof Pianosaurus is secretly going to be our friend or anything. But of the characters we have, it's definitely most likely. Maybe the reason Pianosaurus is shaking is because he's injured and will be in charge of trying to heal him, or it could also be because he's scared and traumatized from things like the Hour of Joy, because we learned in the Sleep Well music video for chapter 3 that all of the toys actually hated living in the factory, especially with, as we've seen as we've gone deeper, the more vicious and vile they have become. So he, similar to someone like Kissy, could be our friend. But moving on, looking back at our cast, I'm also left with a second question. Back in chapter 3, one of the big twists was us lowering the lift into the prison before Kissy Missy at the perfect time is attacked by a mysterious creature. And now with most, if not all, of the chapter 4 characters revealed to us, this allows us to ask the question: who did this to Kissy Missy? Well, to me anyway, I think the prime suspect seems somewhat obvious when you listen to the scene once again.
There's something.
Notice the loud bumping slash stomping sound we hear. Of all of the characters we've seen so far, this sounds like most likely, in my opinion, it would be Harley Sawyer. Because unlike all the other characters made out of organic soft material because they are real living beings, Sawyer is rather an endoskeleton, and these heavy stomps make the most sense coming from Sawyer just from the audio alone. But this also makes sense with the timing, because we conveniently get stuck on the lift just in time for the mysterious being to attack Kissy Missy, separating us, almost as if the attacker was watching us, waiting for the right moment to strike. And of course, as we later learned, Harley was watching us the entire time, so he could have attacked Kissy at the perfect time, taking her down to the prison or whatever he wanted to do. This also lines up with the thumbnails given to us for Harley's reveal trailer, showing him specifically watching over Kissy, which at first I thought was meaningless because there is a 4th version of him watching over Catnap instead. But the more I think about it, I think that might have just been a callback to our first Harley Sawyer teaser we got in another video of him grabbing a catnap plush, which was another callback to the chapter 2 trailer where we saw Mommy Longlegs grab the at the time last main villain Huggy Wuggy, meaning it was just a reference and nothing lore-wise. But so, assuming these Kissy thumbnails matter, it would also back up the theory Sawyer was watching over her the entire time. The only real hole in this theory that doesn't make me believe this is 100% confirmed is in the chapter 3 story so far video. We saw in the last scene as Kissy was being attacked, the cameras zoom out and show Harley Sawyer laughing as if he was watching, sort of leaving the question on how Sawyer could attack Kissy while also be watching from the control panel area. So maybe I'm overthinking it and this section of the video isn't meant to be taken 100% literally, or maybe Sawyer sent someone up there to attack Kissy. I'm really not sure. But now moving on to the biggest and main question of this video with our cast: who is the main villain of it all? Which of these characters is the flagship focal point of the chapter like the last 3 have had? Who will be the most involved in the game? And currently it's been ruled down to 2 people. Harley Sawyer, the main focus of all of chapter 4's rollout up until this point, with his iconic eye being plastered everywhere, and of course this mysterious hatted villain who has been teased in a bunch of Poppy Playtime art and still to this day hasn't been revealed. So who is it? Well, in a recent video I said it seemed like it was obviously going to be the unrevealed character. They usually don't reveal the final main villain until like a couple weeks before each chapter, and there's no way they would tease them for this long if they weren't the main focus, and I just had a weird feeling they would be the character. However, after posting that, as it turns out, a lot of people did not agree. There were a ton of people telling me that this theory was actually wrong, and even that the arguments didn't make any sense. And to some extent, they were right. I had no proof this random silhouette was going to be the chapter 4 main villain, and that was a really bold assumption to make. But with that being said, why do I think they're so important, and why am I here talking about it again? Well, randomly, I was reminded of an interview the CEO of Poppy Playtime, Zach Bellinger, did after the release of chapter 3 to draw some hype for chapter 4, where in it they were asked about the next main villain, the mysterious question we've been trying to answer, where Zach told us the new villain will be a fan favorite and the design takes every unique advantage of being a Poppy Playtime toy monster, from the material choice to the animation. This quote right here confirms to us once and for all that the chapter 4 main villain must be a Playtime Co toy, and so therefore that automatically 100% rules out Harley Sawyer, who is merely an endoskeleton and not a toy. And even if you want to argue that maybe they misspoke here, they even boast about the material choice and animation of the toy, which would make no sense if they were talking about a metal stiff moving robot of all things. It doesn't really line up, which in my opinion is definitely enough proof that this character is the main antagonist of chapter 4, which of course tells us, if true, that this character is going to be the centerpiece of the chapter, at least gameplay wise, and is going to have the focus on things like the banner and whatnot. But then what makes this theory confusing is then what about Harley Sawyer? He seems lore wise like he is by far the most important character in chapter 4, so what are they doing with him? Well, the answer is actually pretty simple. See, in chapter 3 we all know and knew Catnap was going to be the main antagonist of the game, the monster who attacked us and roamed the entire factory up until the boss fight and the one in the banner. However, lore wise, chapter 3 in all reality was actually meant to be about the prototype. In a lot of the first couple of trailers and teasers in the ARG, there was a big focus on the cult that the prototype had created after the Hour of Joy, and while he wasn't the main character plastered all over the banners and merch and whatnot, lore wise he was by far the most important. Catnap wasn't significant because he was Catnap, but rather because he represented the power the prototype had over all of the toys. And similarly to chapter 3, I believe we will have something like that happen here as well, where they give us a cute hatted creature to put on the front line as the main toy among the other friends, when the large overarching enemy for the lore junkies like you and me will of course still be Harley Sawyer. Notice the prototype has been mysteriously absent ever since chapter 4's rollout because Harley Sawyer is taking his place for this specific chapter. Furthermore, we can also theorize even more about this character's identity because there is another unsolved mystery about chapter 4 I don't know if I've ever talked about on this channel that goes all the way back to last summer. As for the season, the developers would post this image to celebrate, showing a Huggy on the beach, and there were notably a couple of secrets here teased early, things like the prison symbol here, and even some kind of pyramid here, which I'm sure will matter in chapter 4 in some way. But something a lot of people found interesting was this one showing a magazine called The Hour, showing some multicolored hands on a blue blue background, making a triangular shape. Now, at first, I didn't know if this really would end up mattering, but a few months later, we would get this new art showing a bunch of smiling critters with Kickin' Chicken, Dog Day, and Bobby Bear Hug reaching their hands in the middle to remake this triangular shape again, and with the same colors, yellow, orange, and red. Then, fast forward all the way to today, for the new year, the devs posted a 3-day countdown for the last few days, one with Catnap, another with Mommy Longlegs, and finally one with Huggy Wuggy. However, after the devs basically had to tell us to overlay the images on top of each other, we can see all of the smoke on the images overlapped to again make the 3 red, orange, yellow points, creating a triangle. Now, with these 3 colors, there is a 90% chance it could be referencing anything. Maybe the colors are somehow related to the areas we'll explore in chapter 4, or some unrevealed gameplay mechanic, or maybe the triangular shape is somehow symbolizing the pyramid we saw in the first art, I don't know. But I still have a sneaking suspicion this might somehow be related to our mystery character, specifically that this will be the color of said villain. As the only concrete detail we know about the character outside of their silhouette is that in one of the teasers showing off their hat, the hat itself is notably blue. That's the only thing we know about their color. However, back in the first art with the color hands, we can see the background they're put on is conveniently blue as well, the same color as the hat, which obviously could easily just be a coincidence. It could be the sky or anything. I'm not saying that's definite proof, but what I think is more compelling is a couple months ago, the developers dropped this piece of chapter 4 merch showcasing Yarnaby and who we now know is Harley Sawyer's eyes watching over him. But what made this one interesting is what we see in the background, as there are a set of pillars in red, orange, and yellow. Again, the same colors we saw from the hands, but there's also 2 other shades of blue, the color of his hat. This makes me think, or at the very least wonder, if these colorful pillars might be the colors of this mystery being. And also, as other people have theorized, this could even tease the material of said character, because fans have noticed the clay-like texture on these pillars, along with the devs earlier saying the material choice in animation would take advantage of being a Playtime Co toy, making it believed this character might also be a villain made out of some kind of clay or mushy material like we see here. Now, I'm not going to pretend that there hasn't been a small leak going around over the past couple months of an upcoming character name that may support this theory even further, but for legal reasons, I can't really talk about that or use them in the theory as much as I'd want to, so I won't speculate on that anymore. However, regardless, this all seems to make sense based on the things the developers have given us alone, leaks aside. You could also speculate further that maybe the reason they used hands to tease these colors is that maybe the character will have 3 different hands with 3 different colors. Again, only assuming this theory is right, because while it makes sense and lines up, it's also totally possible there's things they haven't revealed about chapter 4 yet, which could maybe explain what this is, or even completely debunk this theory. I don't really know, but one thing's for sure, that they will be the chapter 4 main villain, and will clearly be very important.